What is up, Blue Demon fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Demon Banter podcast brought to you by WeAreDePaul. And we have a great episode in store today. We are joined by Marquette guy Jack. Jack, how are we doing today?
Doing well, Joey. Thank you very much for having me on today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We're gonna get all into this big matchup on Sunday between DePaul and Marquette. Before we do, Jack, I want to dive into each team in the state they're kind of at right now.
Hmm.
DePaul, I'll go through DePaul, you'll go through Marquette, but we'll hand it over to you first with Marquette. What's the state of Marquette right now? How are they looking? How are they doing recently?
Yeah, it's sort of been night and day from where they were even 2 months ago at this time. I mean, they finally got their first road win of the season at Georgetown just a few days ago, Tuesday night. Before then, they were 0-12
Oh,
outside of Fiserv Forum. They were finally able to get over the hump and get a road win, and they did it without their second best player in the last month and a half, in Royce Parham. And so, a shorthanded Golden Eagles team comes in and shows the country that they are not the same team that they were in November or December or even January for that matter, and that they can get it done. Earlier on in the season, it was really just new low after new low, mystifying loss after more mystifying loss. They found new ways to lose that I've never seen before. I'm sure you haven't either.
yeah.
So it's been a complete 180 from that, and they're building and they're playing better. And I was talking with another one of the Marquette beat reporters, and he told me, he's like, in my opinion, this team is playing better right now in February than they were last season in
Oh,
February. And looking at who Marquette had last year and Cam Jones and Stevie
yeah.
Mitchell and David Joplin, at first, when you first hear that, you sort of think that can't be true. And then you go back in your brain and you're like, wow, maybe it actually is. And this Golden Eagles team is really building to something that next year, next 2 years, can really be a force in the Big East and sort of get back to that mountaintop.
Yeah, in February they beat Butler back on February 7th. They lost a close game on the road to at Villanova. They lost the
Mm-hmm.
game at Xavier again close. Should have beat St. John's, but lost that one at home. And then they beat Georgetown 76 to 60 on Tuesday, like you mentioned. Going back to that Georgetown win for Marquette, what did you kind of like what Marquette was able to do in that game?
Yeah, I think it's just get it done.
Hmm.
We hadn't seen Marquette step on the neck of anybody that they've played this year outside of a bye game opponent here and there back in November. And they had multiple chances this season where they're up by 8 or 10 on the road with 5, 6 minutes to go, and then they lose it because they can't make shots. Their defense wanes. But what we saw on Tuesday night from Marquette was the fact that their defense was able to hold Georgetown to just 6 points and 1 of 13 from the field in the final
Wow.
8 minutes.
Wow.
That is a defensive performance that Shaka Smart wants to see every game, but hasn't existed at all until Tuesday night. And so I look at their ability to get it done on the road and that defensive performance down the stretch, which has waned a lot in past games this year. It didn't Tuesday night, and look at what they were able to do, win by 16.
Yeah, a good win for them. That's a good win for them. And on the DePaul side, DePaul also playing some good basketball here recently in the month of February. They had a kind of lull a couple weeks ago when they lost four straight from January 28th to February 7th, but they've answered back. They won a game at home against Creighton. They went to Seton Hall, beat Seton Hall, lost a close game to Providence, which they should have won. And then they beat Creighton on the road in their most recent game on Wednesday night. And in that game, Creighton versus DePaul, what a game for DePaul in that game, Jack. It was a good game, back and forth. It looked like Creighton controlled the entire game, but DePaul never gave up. The fight was there, and at the end of the day, DePaul got the job done. It was a solid all-around performance, I thought, from this DePaul team. Shooting the ball well, 50% from the field, 53% from three. Now, Jack, I don't know how much you look at this DePaul team, how much you've watched them, but they're not a great three-point shooting team. So seeing them, make 10 of 19 from three was shocking to see, but honestly was a reason they were able to come out victorious in that game. But I thought all around great performance from DePaul in that game, led by Brandon Macklin, who's been a big time player for DePaul over the past couple of weeks. Honestly, the whole season, Brandon Macklin has been phenomenal. In that game against Creighton, 21 points, four assists, three rebounds, kind of did it all in that game against Creighton. CJ Gunn was his usual self, 11 points. NJ Benson, of course, continuing his great play. It's just DePaul is clicking at the right time here, and you look at where they're at now. They're currently the sixth seed heading into the final week and a half of Big East play. They're catching the five seed for that first round bye. So both teams, obviously Marquette, they're 11 right now, but they're playing better. They want to move up, obviously. And right now, DePaul is at six, Marquette 11. Could we see a first round matchup between these two teams? That's what it's looking like right now. But obviously, a lot can change over these next week and a half. And I want to talk about now about that first meeting between DePaul and Marquette. Obviously, Marquette traveled to Wintrust Arena in the middle of January. Marquette owned the first half. In the second half, though, it was all Blue Demons, and DePaul winded up winning that game. I guess if you can remember, Jack, a couple
Mhm.
months ago, 1 month ago, what kind of
Mhm.
happened? What did you kind of see from Marquette in that game?
Well, I saw what I talked about just a couple of minutes ago of just a complete collapse in the second half. It took 3 minutes, not even 3 minutes, for Marquette's 8 point halftime lead
Yep.
to turn into a 6 point deficit. It is a 14 point swing in under 3 minutes. And that is absolutely insane. The fact that DePaul scored the first 14 points of the half while Marquette scored
Yep.
zero is just absolutely insane to think about. And and after that, DePaul comes out of the locker room. They're making shots. Marquette's defense isn't playing well. And then after that, a little tit for tat. Marquette keeping
Yep.
pace, throwing some punches. But by then it was too late. And I've been to Wintrust. I'm a senior right now at Marquette, and I've been to Wintrust my freshman and sophomore year. I've never seen that building so loud for DePaul. I've seen it loud
Nice.
for Marquette because
Yep.
there's a lot of Marquette Chicago area people. I have never seen that building get so loud so quickly for DePaul when Marquette's in town. And that's exactly what happened is Marquette just got overwhelmed. And DePaul used their start of the second half, carried it all the way through the final 20 minutes. And it ended up being a really disappointing 5 point loss for Marquette.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I early on, it looked like Marquette was going to win this game, and they
Yeah.
controlled the entire first half. They
Mm-hmm.
led 32 to 22, then they led 39 to 31, 41 to 34, and then like you mentioned, 44 to 34 with 8 seconds left in the first half, and then something clicked for DePaul, and obviously, you got to give props in that game to CJ Gunn, who was on fire in that
Mm.
game, 31 points. 7 of 13 from three. Like he was fantastic in that game, and he played 39 minutes. And Macklin, of course, played good in that game too, 12 points. But it was a good shooting effort again from DePaul in that game. They shot 46% from three, and again, it's not who they are. Obviously, a lot of that can be CJ Gunn because he did make 70 of the 11 3-pointers in that game. But a lot of DePaul's game was on the inside. Like that's just who they are. That's what Holtman wants them to be. They want them to be play inside and not so much rely on that 3-point game. But in the some wins this year, they've gone hot from three, and it's led to victories against Marquette, against Creighton on Wednesday night. So DePaul has the capability of doing that. It's just about putting it together. And I know you mentioned about being at Wintrust. What are kind of your overall thoughts about what Holtman has kind of done in year two with DePaul?
Yeah, I mean, I remember back when like Tony Stubblefield was head
Yeah,
coach, and it was sort of I don't want to say a dumpster fire, but it was something
yeah, it was
very
bad.
close.
It
It
was
was
bad.
not good. and and like I said, like I've seen Wintrust loud, but
Yeah.
never Paul. And your students weren't going to games. I mean, campus isn't that close to Wintrust,
Yeah,
so
of
I
course.
understand it. But students weren't going to games. Adults weren't very engaged. The most amount of fans that I saw were all wearing blue and gold, not blue and red. And and then I show up in mid-January of this year, and listen, I know that Chris Holtman's a good coach.
Yeah,
I understand that he's making sort of a lot more progress
yeah, of
than
course.
you look at 3 years ago. But I was blown away by the turnout that I saw. Complete 180 from what I'd seen in my first 2 years. And I didn't go to last year's game at DePaul, which I think went to overtime.
It did.
Um,
Yep,
yeah, Marquette nearly lost it, if I'm not mistaken.
yep.
Won in overtime, just barely. So I don't know what it was like then, but I do know that this year was the loudest home environment I've ever seen for you guys
Yeah,
out
it's
of my three trips. And I think it
yeah.
just speaks to what Chris has been able to do in his only 2 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's actually I've given a lot of props. Obviously, this is a guy very good coach. Like from Butler to Ohio State, this is a coach, multiple time coach of the year and multiple conferences. So like everyone knows Holman's a good coach. Obviously, this is a tough challenge to build DePaul, who 2 years ago was 0-20 in conference play. So like it was a tough task, but he's done a good job. Obviously, 7 Big East wins is fantastic for DePaul, knowing where DePaul has been recently. So obviously, Oman's doing a good job. It's just about finishing the season strong and doing that and building the program. It's not easy. Obviously, this is considered a down year for the Big East and the teams in the Big East and whatnot. But you got to give credit to Holtman and the job that he's done in the second year, because obviously, DePaul. You look at the conference, DePaul doesn't have the most talented players. Like they just don't. But they're playing together. They have fight. They have heart, and they're playing. They're playing a good brand of basketball recently, and I think that says a lot about what Holtman has been able to do. And yeah, attendance has been up. Tennis was obviously up in the first year from Stubblefield to Holtman in the first year, and now from year one to Holtman to year two in Holtman, it's been up. Like that is just a great sign for DePaul and building this program. So I think Holtman has done a good job, and I don't want to talk too much about DePaul. I want to talk a little bit about Marquette now, and Mr. Potential Freshman of the Year, Nigel
Oh,
James, man, looks like an animal out there. Looks like he has a chance to win it. He's just an electric player. I guess kind of you've covered Marquette this year. Just kind of your thoughts on Nigel and the player that he is.
I think a lot of people that don't look at Marquette super closely might be shocked to learn that he didn't start at the beginning of the year. He rode the bench for the first 2 games, or the first 3 games, and then he
Yep.
started the second half of their third game against Indiana. And since then, he's just lit the entire Big East on fire. Freshman of the week after freshman of the week, scoring 30-point games left, right, and center, being the lone bright spot on a dismal, dismal season. I mean, just his stat line this year alone is incredible. He's shown insane amounts of versatility. He can beat you. He can beat you when driving to the hoop. He's faster than you. But if you give him space, he can also shoot the three as well. He's doing windmill dunks and he's posterizing people that are taller than him. And everyone knows that the listed height on a roster in college
Yeah.
basketball isn't accurate at all.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6 feet, so he isn't even 6 feet tall. Really, he's more like a little over 5'11", maybe. And
Okay.
so the fact that he's this little kid, very short, doing this to opponents is just absolutely insane. I mean, shooting 48% from the field, averaging 16 points per game, and really the last 2 months we've seen a complete shift and how Marquette has operated. And in November and December, everything ran through Chase Ross. And Chase Ross was, coming into the season,
Yeah.
he was the only Marquette player to earn any preseason Big East honors. He was Marquette's guy for the first 2 months of the season. And then the last 2 months, Nigel James Jr. has just lit the entire world on fire. I mean, 38 points, followed by 15, followed by 21, followed by 2 16s. His off game is when he puts up 9, but he follows it right back up with another 30-point performance.
Yes.
And so he's just been incredible to watch. And I don't understand how he makes some of the layups he does. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw the one against St. John's. He goes
Yes.
through 2 defenders
Down.
under the hoop
Yep.
and spins it in. I don't
Insane.
understand.
Insane. Insane. Yeah, he's just from my watching from him this year, he should be the front runner for freshman of the year. And and honestly, I saw some good things when he played DePaul earlier. Obviously, not his best shooting night in that game. Shot, I believe,
Mhm.
7 for 19, but still had 18 points in that game, and obviously affected the game in multiple areas. But yeah, it obviously seems like the Marquette is playing through him more. He's been the
Yeah.
leading scorer for Marquette in 7 of the past 10 games, and
Hmm.
in the past 3 games, he's scored 30 points against Xavier, 25 points against St. John's, and 20 points against Georgetown in the win. So yeah, DePaul's got their hands full with him. It's obviously going to be a tough assignment for Leighton Blocker, but Leighton Blocker's a good defender. DePaul's guard Leighton Blocker's a good defender, so that's going to be a good matchup to see. And I'm excited for it. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, the key could be Nigel in this game, what he's able to do offensively. But before we dive more into that game, I have a follower. I have a podcast question that I wanted to get to before we get into that game. This was on our YouTube comment from a DePaul alum here. Graduated back in 2019. He said, "This is noteworthy improvement. Not sure for how long hoping will coach the group, or what are his financial resources now that college basketball has officially moved into a pay-for-play era? Perhaps good topics for your next episode, just a suggestion. Yeah, so this comment wants to know about DePaul's financial resources this year. And when talking with PV before the season, and we got to talk to PV, the athletic director for DePaul, he said that it's been more in the middle of the pack for DePaul. So DePaul financial resources are middle of the pack, which is good. Obviously, it's going to be hard to get to the top of the Big East and play. But they're not at the bottom anymore. And PV said that a couple months ago. They're not at the bottom, which is interesting. And it's a good thing for DePaul. So it seems like they're kind of in the middle of the pack for the money, for the financial resource, which is a good thing. And obviously, DePaul is building a brand new practice facility here. Should break ground this summer and potentially be ready to go by fall 2027. So obviously, they're moving into getting the resources to kind of pay these players in kind of a new basketball era. And that's obviously a good news for DePaul. But Jack, now let's get into this game. DePaul Marquette, Sunday afternoon at Fiserv Forum. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a packed game. Obviously, a rivalry of some sorts, I guess. What are kind of your thoughts going into this game? What does Marquette need to do to beat DePaul on Sunday?
They can't have a 3-minute stretch where they give up 14 points and score 0.
Yep.
I think it's really that simple. If that doesn't happen, I say with full confidence that Marquette walks out of Wintrust Arena with a win. Like you said, they owned the first half, and then really they played well enough after that 3-minute stretch at the start of the second half in order to stay competitive. But they just can't let themselves they can't turn one miss, can't turn into 10. Which is an issue that's happened this year. They dwell on a missed shot, and then it turns into a failed defensive possession, and then they're thinking about that, and it spirals into 14 points given up in 2 minutes, in 10 seconds. And so that can't happen. I don't think it will. I think this team has grown a lot in the last month since the last time DePaul and Marquette played. Marquette has definitely looked a lot better. And if this was the Marquette team now that played in January, I could see Marquette walking out of that building with a win because that's just how much improvement there's been. And so I'm curious about the health of Royce Parham. Like I mentioned, he was out for the Georgetown game with back spasms, suffered in pregame warmups. I'm really curious to see what he's going to look like. That could be a key for Marquette as well. But as long as they don't have a 2 to 3 minute stretch where they just completely shut down, I think Marquette is going to be able to come away with a win. I haven't looked at KenPom yet. I'll normally wait until a day before the game. I'll pull it up now. Marquette right now has a 65% chance to walk away with a win. I think that's fair. Just looking at
they'll be favored, Marquette, for sure.
Yeah, just looking at how they've played at home recently. I mean, they won 3 games in a row at home and then lost to St. John's, who forget about the other night against UConn. St. John's is a really good team. And so they've been playing much better at home, and I expect that their defense won't fall apart. And so assuming that happens, I think they're going to walk away with a win. Yeah,
for DePaul, you got to play the way you have all year, and that is lean on your defense and play through the paint. That has been the staple of DePaul all year. Their offense can be inconsistent at times. Like the 80 points that they scored against Marquette, it's unlike them to score 80 points in a game. Like that's not who they are. They're in a lot of games, tight, close, defensive battle game. That's who they've been all year, and it's worked. Like it has worked. And they need to lean on it again. They need to play defense. They cannot let Marquette score 75 points that they did last time. They have to be better defensively, and that's how they're going to win. If they can hold Marquette to 65, 66, 67, 68 points, DePaul should do enough offensively where they can come away. But you mentioned they got Nigel James. They're playing better. So that's going to be a tough test for DePaul. But again, you have to play defense. You have to work it in. NJ Benson has been one of the best big men in the country over the past 2 weeks. I believe I saw the stat that he has the best field goal percentage over the last 2 weeks in college basketball. Like he has been dominant inside over the past 2 weeks. You have to play through him. And of course, work off CJ Gunn, Brandon Macklin. Kind of the seniors need to get it done. Benson, Gunn, Macklin, the seniors on this team, they have to get it done. And I think DePaul, they're going to enter this game underdogs. They haven't particularly played well on the road this season, only one road win, but they've shown a lot of effort on the road, and I think maybe I give Marquette a 2.5, 3.5 point favorite in this game. Somewhere around that, Marquette will be favored, but somewhere in that range. But if DePaul plays their defense, works it inside, plays through NJ Benson, I think DePaul has a shot to win this game. And we enter this game with DePaul 46th in defensive rating on Ken Palm. That is their high for the season. They're a great defensive team. Offensively, they're 177th. Not good. But I think to me it is interesting. And I want to get your thoughts because you obviously cover them and you obviously know Marquette better than I do. But interesting to see Marquette ranked higher than DePaul on Ken Palm. DePaul comes in at 101, Marquette 96. I know it's close. I know 96, 101 is not much of a difference. But I guess your thoughts on Marquette ranked 96, DePaul 101, and Marquette actually ranked higher than DePaul and Ken Palm. Your thoughts on that?
If you told me a month ago that that was the reality, I
Mhm.
would have looked at you like you have three eyes, not two. And I think that's just because Marquette played so atrociously
Yeah,
through the first 2+ months of the season that it would make absolutely zero sense that the fact that they're a top 100 team. I'd be like, what are you talking about?
yeah,
The same Marquette? It has to be a different market. You're talking about a different year. There's no way. Just because that's how poor they looked in
yeah,
November and December. I don't know what Ken Palm, what our favorite Ken Pomeroy's algorithm is.
yeah.
So I can't really comment on that side of it. But I do know that Marquette's defense has looked a lot better
Okay.
in the last 3 weeks. And their defensive rating right now is 87th in the country. It was probably as low as like 130,
Wow.
140 in the
Okay.
doldrums of this season. That's how bad they look defensively. And so I think their defense is a big reason why they've sort of catapulted up to where they are now at 96, which is very high compared
Yeah.
to where they were 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think they're a very similar team. But I think I don't know, just knowing DePaul and covering them all year, I think they are the
Mhm.
better team. But I guess we'll see on Sunday, right? Like we'll see if DePaul can go on the road. Fiserv Forum is going to be a lot of Marquette fans. How has the attendance been for Marquette this year, even though in a down year?
Lacking, I'd say,
Lacking.
especially the student section. So
Okay.
those who don't know, Fiserv Forum is a little under a mile. It's like a mile away from
Hmm.
campus. And so it was never an issue 2 years
Yeah.
ago when Marquette was really good, but now they're
Right.
bad. And when you spend 3 months finding new ways to lose games, students don't want to make that mile trek through the cold winters in
Yeah, of course.
Milwaukee. And so the attendance has been lackluster, to say the least. Student sections are not full at all. And then the upper bowl, I always look for this. The upper bowl, what does that look like? And
Yeah.
that's pretty sparse as well. I think there's a clear difference from where
Okay.
they were 2 years ago and even last year in terms of attendance. I don't know what Sunday's going to be. I'm
I,
curious because they're
I think it's
playing
gonna
better.
be. I think it's gonna be pretty packed. Just knowing Marquette DePaul rivalry, it's a Sunday afternoon. Like
Mm.
no football's on. Like baseball season hasn't started. Like like this is I think Marquette fans are gonna. I also think DePaul fans are gonna travel to this game too. It's not a far drive. It's like an hour, 15, hour 30, depending on where you live in the Chicagoland area. But I think this is
Mhm.
gonna be a good game. I think the DePaul fans are gonna show up. Marquette fans are gonna show up. It's gonna be loud. It's gonna be a good atmosphere. And before we end this episode, Jack, I want to get your prediction. Does Marquette defend Fiserv Forum and win this game?
I think they do. I think they do. I think Marquette's defense is going to hold DePaul to low 70s, and I think Marquette's going to score close to 80. And I think you're looking at an 7 or 8 point victory.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with DePaul in this game. But if Marquette does score 75, 80 points, I think they will win the game. So
Hmm.
the key is DePaul has to hold them to. The key for Holtman has said if he can hold teams around under 72 points, that he thinks they have a good shot to win. So
Mhm.
obviously against Creighton, they held them to 71. They won. They held Creighton to 71 a week and a half ago. They won. Seton Hall 57 points. So that's the key. If they can hold Marquette to around 70-ish points under that, DePaul will win. But if Marquette does score 75 to 80 points, I think they could take the victory. But that's going to do it here on this episode of the Blue Demon Banter podcast, brought to you by WeAreDePaul. Jack, thank you for hopping on. Should be a good game on Sunday. And as always, guys, go Blue Demons, go. Don't forget to subscribe to our free newsletter at wearedepaul.com. Go Blue Demons.